Okay, time to give the people what they want. This channel is a democracy after all, and by that I mean one of those democracies that's secretly run by one man, me. Truth be told, I wasn't really planning on making another You video, but the love the video has received is both amazing and humbling. I love each and every one of you. Yes, even you watching this video. Unless you haven't subscribed yet, and then I just really like you. I am convinced that whoever made the final season watched my Joe King of Delusion video and decided to address a lot of my points. Because this is a crazy coincidence, or it's the Illuminati, one or the other. Just so you know, I will be making references to my other videos, so if you want to go watch those first, this might make a little bit more sense, but if not, that's fine too. Anyway, time to get this video started. Obviously, spoilers ahead for you. 3 years have passed between the 4th and 5th season, which I felt was such a good touch. It starts with Joe being married to Kate. He has Henry back and he hasn't killed in 3 years. Him not killing for years is an interesting touch because it really shows his need for killing to be an addiction. He manages it for years because there are no triggers, but once he slips and falls down the path, he eventually ends up in his old ways. Not just murdering, but also the cheating. I don't know if it's just Penn growing up, but Joe feels much more adult than he did before, even compared to the last season. He's much more comfortable talking about who and what he is, and more capable of communicating his desires and his feelings, for better or for worse. In the previous video, I mentioned that there are 2 Joes in a sort of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde contrast, but actually I think this season this idea is represented through the 2 twins, Maddie and Reagan, as there's a good twin and a bad twin. Once Reagan is dead, Maddie has to replace her twin, which creates a thematic merge between the 2 characters. Maddie's haunted by her version of Reagan in a similar way that Reese haunted Joe. There are many similarities between Joe and Maddie. Firstly, Maddie's shown to go above and beyond sanity for the people she loved, maybe not in murder, but in lots of different ways. But then she finally does kill Reagan, and this is where she splits off from Joe because unlike him, she can't handle the weight of what she's done. In general, I actually think it would have been way more interesting if Joe had more sympathy for Maddie and they had a bond and a connection building between them. That being said, his plan, crazy, but also kind of ingenious because it's Reagan who led the plan. Reagan started the train, Joe just changed the trajectory of the tracks. But while this sense of duality can be seen in the twins, the sense of duality is no longer seen in Joe. He's much more intentional with his actions, showing less regret and less hesitations. He has become one, which was stated at the end of the 4th season. I was a little worried when I found out that he hadn't killed in 3 years, that they were going to backtrack. Bro straight up entered his Darth Vader era. I guess he would be Darth Cages. In this way, he is more like Book Joe. He's straight up accepting that he's a murderer and just decided to use this advantage for all it's worth. But the singularity also makes the final season feel more like a finality because Joe is no longer as careful with his actions as he once was. He's killing more and there's less preparation with his killing. It feels like there's no way he could have kept up this energy without getting caught. In a lot of ways, season 5 is a love letter to the previous seasons, with characters coming back and even Beck having an influence on the story. It's a sort of return to the show's format. Season 4 was very different from the rest of the show, with a focus on a murder mystery rather than a thriller-like romance. It's probably why people liked season 4 the least. I think Kate suffered the most for this change in format, as because she wasn't the focus of the season, she came across a bit bland and uninspired. I did not believe their romance for a minute. 1 second she's threatening him, the next she's having sex with him, then she marries him. Mixed messages.
What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What do you want?
But I have to say, she did redeem herself in this season. If I was making a list ranking Joe's love interest, Kate would have gone from the bottom 3 to the top 3. We have not seen a comeback like this since Luffy fought Kaido, or since Robert Downey Jr. did Iron Man. She has personality, and the relationship between them is much more realistic. But also, to be fair, most of the time they spend as adversaries, so their chemistry matters less. Has there ever been an enemies to lovers, back to enemies trope done like this? I don't know, let me know what you think. I asked a question in the previous video. What does Kate know and how much would she be willing to accept? Turns out the answer is not much of both. She didn't even know he was Eat the Rich killer, which surprised me. I thought she was smart enough to put 2 and 2 together.
You dumb bastard.
But alas, it's clear that she thought the murders were in self-defense. While not the perfect character, what I liked about Kate is that when it was time, she stepped up. She had to be the love interest in this finale because none of the other characters would have worked. She came up with a plan, she executed the plan, and she won. She had Joe in her grasp. She was in the final yard before the touchdown, only to have victory stolen from her in the final moments by Bronte, who, believe me, I have a lot to talk about, but I'll come to that later. I don't even really have a problem with Kate ordering Joe to kill that guy, from a character perspective, not from an ethical perspective. She felt like her whole life was falling apart, and in a moment of weakness, she chose the easiest way out. I'm not saying it's right in any way, but I understand this move from her character. At the end of the day, she is pragmatic and logical. But then she regrets it. She's realized she stepped into old bad patterns, but she can't close the Pandora's box that she opened because Joe doesn't want to go back. I do have one gripe with her this season, in the fact that she should have died. It was kind of poetic for someone who was trying to redeem herself, to sacrifice herself, to take down a bigger evil while also saving the woman that she braved. It's a reflection of her toxic relationship with her dad. She let him be evil, but with Joe, she finally broke the pattern. A perfect conclusion to her story. Henry coming back was also definitely a good choice, but it did ruin a lot of points I made in the previous video. In the previous video, I sort of said that Joe wouldn't work as a father because he doesn't know how to interact with men. And I have to admit, Joe's a good dad. I have to stand up and admit I was wrong. I think it would have been so easy to make him a bad dad, but the fact that he did nothing wrong to Henry is a very interesting twist. He's protective of Henry in a way that's healthy, and Joe decides that the cycle of violence ends with him. He's trying to protect Henry's innocence. When he breaks into the house to find Henry, the first thing he does when Henry comes out is hide the knife. He doesn't want his son to see him that way. When the security guards are dragging him out, Joe could have gone on a murder spree, but he didn't. He doesn't want his son to see that. It really adds emotion to the fact that when his son does reject him, it's not because of anything he's done to Henry. It's because of the effect he has on the world and the people around him, the people that Henry cares about. Finally, this teaches Joe the lesson that just because you do good things for the people you love, it doesn't make you a good person. That phone call scene, Penn nailed it. He actually had me feeling bad for Joe. Joe has been evil all season, and in the final episode, I feel sympathy for him because he actually believes what he's saying. He really did try his best to love the women in his life and his son, but he did it in the wrong way. He can't escape his dark nature. While he believes what he was doing was right, the reality doesn't match that. 100% effort, 0% result. I do not understand what the hell they were thinking. They had the perfect end of the story, and they dropped the ball. The women who were hurt by Joe have finally accomplished together what they could not have done before. They have Joe. He's in a cage. This culmination of all the seasons with Marianne returning, Kate's redemption, Nadia's freedom, even Beck has an influence on the story. The only thing that's missing was Love, who arguably had the biggest impact on Joe, but she's dead. She ain't coming back. A great thing about this season that is shown, not only did Joe negatively impact the people around him, but also created a cascading effect that damaged everyone around them. Nadia's dad died from stress, her mum went bankrupt, Marianne lives in constant fear for her daughter, Dr. Nikki's son has dedicated his life to finding the truth. These aren't problems that are solved just because Joe died. But it doesn't mean that him going to prison was meaningless, because they have some form of conclusion. Nadia's mum finally knows that her daughter is innocent, and Marianne can achieve some level of peace. It also showed that even though we saw it from Joe's perspective that he thought it was Reese, it was in fact him hurting these people. Just because it was a split personality doesn't mean he doesn't hold accountability for his actions. I really enjoyed the fact that they brought back all these different characters to show the fact that Joe has influenced so many lives. But also, interestingly, not always have been negative. They bring back Paco, they bring back Will, they both stood by him. Even Ethan, in his own way, stood by Joe. It showed how Joe was able to justify his own actions because some good did come from it. They do try to undermine this message in the finale, which I don't understand. When Bronte was like, Joe doesn't matter in the long run, he's just my ex. But I don't like that. I think it does a disservice to all the life-altering pain that Joe's caused. Plus, Marianne talking to Bronte, relating to her struggles with falling in love with Joe's fantasy, and that finally being what woke Bronte up was such a beautiful moment. But this moment didn't diminish Joe's power. He was still delusional, still fighting all these people that he's hurt over the years with his own brand of logic, still standing on business. And the fact that despite their best planning, Joe still managed to gain the upper hand with such a Joe solution, a key in his arm, this not only showed his cunning, but the fact that he's learning from previous mistakes of hiding it in the room, and also his leaning towards violence. He chose a violent solution to a problem. He escapes that cage, showing he's still a force to be reckoned with. He may be down, but he's not out. But then, a side character who Joe has shown to underestimate, a person who he barely thought about, plus bad timing and dumb luck, is what finally brings him down. Plus, she's a reflection of his good side. You could have had a story of it being circular, that does evil be evil, and then she could almost thematically pick up his mantle, deciding that murder is a way of solving her problems and protecting her loved ones. But that aside, that final moment of pure honesty with Kate, connecting with her the way he always wanted to connect with someone just before his death, he's not holding anything back. Bronte leaving him in that basement and Joe's demise coming from a woman who finally sees him and abandons him just like his mother did all those years ago would have been a perfect full circle to end the story. He didn't deserve to be abandoned by his mum, but he did deserve to be abandoned by Bronte. I could not believe that Bronte saved him and left Kate to die. I know Kate didn't die, but I am calling some Deadpool immortal bullshit. Because how the hell did she survive that? She was shot, left in a burning building, in a secret basement with a closed door. That is a ghost raising Henry and you cannot tell me otherwise.
Hey, right there.
The only thing that I kind of liked about the finale is the fact that the story was then switching the narrative to Bronte. I mentioned before in a previous video that I love the bits that were narrated by Marianne in season 4, showing how Joe affects people around him without the bias of Joe's personal biases. Changing the main character to fully make Joe the villain of the story is a great idea. But the fact is I can't give them full props for it because Bronte was not the character for this. You can't take me from all these women with strong ties to Joe for years, who have gone through blood, sweat, and fear to reach this point, to then give me Bronte. The narration should have been switching between the women downstairs in the cage. It could have been a cool loop effect where we see the same moment in time, but from different people's perspectives, so we can see what each character is thinking and feeling. The complex emotions involved with this. At the end of the day, at one point, Marianne and Kate did love Joe, and now they have him in a cage, fully exposed for what he is. But no, Bronte is now the main character. In case it wasn't obvious, I am not a fan of Bronte. I will say that plainly. She is my least favorite love interest, for a very simple reason. They ruined such an interesting plotline with her. In a lot of ways, Bronte is similar to a character that's exclusive to the book, Amy. Amy manipulates Joe by pretending to date him, but her end goal is to get the spare key so she can rob the store. She's giving Joe what he wants so that she can get something from him. She plays with his obvious insecurities to get what she wants, and Joe is too delusional to notice. When Bronte first came in, she was cringe, okay? A proper quirky, over the top, but girly. I wasn't feeling it. She was scattered, she was all over the place, and I was like, great, they're giving Joe his perfect girl. She didn't feel like a real person. And then plot twist, it turns out that's exactly what she was doing. She was faking it in order to catfish Joe. Brother, my whole opinion of her changed in a single moment. The fact that she understood what he wanted and fooled not only him, but me? I was on board the Bronte train. Let's go. And then I got off at the next station, because she proceeded to ruin all of that development. The story should have continued, where Joe finds her and through fear, she keeps up the facade, while Joe is convincing himself that he can change her. This is not unlike the book, where once Joe discovers Amy's deception, there is no doubt in his mind, he's singly focused on killing her. He's hunting her for the first half of the book. Quick side note, this man here, no survival instincts. Just fucking lie, man. It's not that hard. Don't tell the people who put you in a cage that you plan on hunting more women. They didn't even ask, you volunteered this information. I'm sure that a lot of people see a comparison between Joe and the guy in the cage. And while I think their actions have similarities, I have to disagree with their motivation. While Joe does hurt people, however delusionally, he does it because he's believing he's protecting the people he cares about. The man in the cage is looking to hurt people. He's bitter and wants to cause pain. Joe, in his own messed up mind, is trying to stop more pain from happening to the people he cares about. He views himself as the hero. It's the difference between a protector and a punisher. This is in no way saying that Joe is better than the man in the cage. There is no justification. I'm just saying I understand why Joe doesn't relate to the man in the cage, why he doesn't see them as the same. Also, the naivety of Bronte shown in the scene, she thought he had to kill because other people were forcing him to kill, but she knew he was a serial killer before. But like, he's quite aware he likes to kill. He admitted as much in the final season. He is now less delusional about himself than Bronte is about him. It's absurd. But let's trace back. If you wanted to continue the plot as is, I have no real problem with that. She really does fall in love with Joe, but for this to work, I want her personality to be drastically different than who she was before. Like, the real her has a completely different personality. You could have had such an interesting relationship develop with Joe, as she tries to be her authentic self, but he's pressuring her to be what she was before because that's what he likes. And a combination of fear and love makes her feel like she has to adjust. She's playing a role, but no, it was you always wanted to be this girl, so you made her up and then you became her. I will say there was a line of hers that I did like.
What is wrong with me? I know who you are, and part of me can still feel this good.
I noticed that this is a theme with women that date Joe. A part of them wants to believe in the fairy tale he's selling. Beck mentions it in her book.
I want this to be loved, Didn't you want him to crown you?
And when I was editing, I noticed a really interesting point. When Jo finds Marianne in season 4, when she first sees Jo, she makes an expression that can only be described as a combination of relief and love before the reality of the situation kicks in. The love story of bumping into your soulmate randomly swept her away before she realized it wasn't fate, he's just a stalker. But yeah, no, Bronte is my least favorite love interest. The only parts of her that I liked was her connection to Beck in the episode where they showed her catfishing him. I will say this plot line would not work with Book Beck, as the people who've seen my other video will understand that Book Beck does not inspire this kind of loyalty. She's terrible. Bronte also did not help herself in the final episode, as her plan to take down Jo makes zero sense. Let me take this dangerous serial killer to a remote cottage and wait until we're about to have sex to hold him at gunpoint so he can rewrite a book. If she had just knocked him out while he was weak in the fire, or held him at gunpoint then, she could have had a much safer plan. Keep him locked up in the safety of a city. That way, when you run outside, you're safe because he's not going to kill you on a crowded street. Or, here's a thought, let him burn and end up in hell where he belongs. Just a suggestion. I think we all knew that Jo was either going to end up in prison or dead. Him ending up in prison but still receiving fan mail was an interesting reflection to our society. Don't get me wrong, Jo's thirsted on real life, and also real life serial killers, Ted Bundy and the such, do receive fan mail. I've always wondered why that is, like what is it about real life serial killers? On the TV show or movie, whatever, there's a plausible deniability, they're not a real person. But how are you sending it to real murderers with real victims? Nah, that's crazy. But as I mentioned before, I would have personally preferred if Jo had died in the fire with Kate. That would have been my ending. So I guess the real question now is, what do I think of the season as a whole? It was definitely a step up from season 4. Bringing back all the characters was interesting, but what I really liked was that in this season, Jo sacrificed his biggest advantage, which was his anonymity. That is what let him move forward each season. He thought he was gaining a bigger advantage, a billionaire wife who can clean his image. But then that became his biggest liability. He's all over social media. He's famous. There is no moving to Paris and moving to London and starting again. That's done. It was chef's kiss. It was great for a final season. I would not say it was my favorite season though. If I had to rate the seasons from best to worst, I would say 1, 3, 2, 5, and 4. If you haven't seen the final season, well, I'm sorry for spoiling it, but I did give you a spoiler warning at the beginning, but it's definitely worth a watch. I am considering making another You video, but this would be like a complete review of the show, as in every season, every book, every thought I have, just one video to rule them all.
One ring to rule them all.
My own version of Jenny Nicholson's Vampire Diary video, just on You, which if you haven't already seen, I highly recommend. It's a great video. I'm in no way associated with her, I just love the video, I'll put it in the description. If that video sounds like something you'd want, comment below. Any concepts that I should discuss, any questions you want answered, I will try and address everything. I don't care how long this video will end up being. I will have to be honest and say it won't be for a while though. It requires me reading the whole book series, rewatching the show, editing. Plus, I need a break, man. I've been staring at Jo's face for the last couple of weeks. There's only so much a man can take. I need a detox. Maybe travel Thailand and find myself spiritually. No, I'll just release other videos. I'm gonna post a list of all my video ideas as a poll like I did last time, and I'll have you guys vote what you wanna see next. Since I won't be doing this as a You video, here's my ranking for Jo's love interest from best to worst. Love, my absolute queen. Beck, Kate, Marianne, Karen, Natalie, Candace, and Bronte. Some of you might be surprised that Beck is so high because I absolutely hated on her in the video that I made previously. I will cover why in my long ass You video, so you're gonna have to wait for that. Until then, comment, subscribe, like, you know what you're doing by now. All that YouTube algorithm goodness. It honestly helps way more than you know, and I'm really trying to make this channel pop off so I can keep making good content for you guys. Otherwise, have a good one guys. See you in the next video.